Hi everyone. Um, Today I want to speak on something that is extremely important for Nigeria because the more I look into the details of Nigeria's problems, how the federal government arrive at their decisions, the more I understand the issues that faces those in power, how they come to make decisions and counter decisions and reverting back to how things were and the consequences of those actions. You see, I've noticed that in Nigeria, a lot of people give different opinions, and most times, these opinions, whether informed or not, when the president listens to them and things go down south, those people that give those advices are not seen. They are not in the public eye, so the president will take the blame. And the problem is that because there's so many people to listen to and the questions are not being asked, where exactly have you seen this thing that you're advising us to do? Where exactly have you seen it being done? Where has it been implemented and what problem did it solve? So instead of coming to just give us an idea of what you think can work, can you prove where he has worked before? Because other than that, people just come up with opinions, try to give answers to the solution, and at the end of the day, you will see that all those things are backfiring. And then people of the other school of thought will now come and say, oh, but this is not what we advise, this is that, this is this. Now, and I'm saying this in the defense of the president because most of the time, whether it is President Buhari or President Tinubu or President Goodluck, they listen to people. They have advisors, you know, and that's why you have contradicting informations coming out. Now, an auditor general or probably somebody from the finance has come out to say that we're still paying subsidy. But somehow, Bayo Nanuga comes out with lies that we are not paying anything as far as subsidies are concerned. So people are now either disregarding Bayo or you're listening to him. So all this confusion is coming out because maybe they are trying to protect their government for political reasons, or maybe they are trying or still trying to go back to what the statu quo was, which is paying the subsidy to ameliorate the issues that we have, but maybe keeping it low key or secret. Now, the problem I have with that is that Bayo Nanuga will just look like a political instrument, like Lai Mohammed, who is just there to make their political party look good, but not solving any of the issues. Now, I listened to show had somebody called an economist, a chief economist called Paul Alagio. I don't know if I got his name correct. But then what he was saying is that although we need those two things that President Tinubu did, which is removal of subsidy and floating of the naira, right? That we didn't need to do two of them at the same time, right? Now, other people have been asked the question, or other parties that also said they would remove subsidy, like Labour Party, they've said we would have done it, but first of all, we would have made sure the modular refineries are running. Now, Paul also says if Dangote come on stream, like promised in July, and the Port Harcourt refinery starts working, things will be better, which of course we all know that. Now, because it has been proving a challenge on how to get this crude, and like Dangote said, the oil mafia are even worse than the drug mafias, which is telling you that for us to be able to save those barrels that we are losing every day is very difficult. So how are they going to get these refineries to get crude in the first place when people like Melekari have sold our crude futuristically? Now this is it, yeah. Government is meant to be a continuum. But what we often see in Nigerian climate is that when a new government comes, they come out with a very different policy and they don't continue or finish what others have started. Which is why I went back today to listen to what Jimoh Ibrahim said. And this is what Jimoh Ibrahim said. And for if you don't know who Jimoh Ibrahim is a senator in Nigerian, current Senate in the National Assembly, and I believe he's the most learned senator. He's somebody I would have loved to see have like debate with somebody like Mr. Peter Obi on economy and other things, right? In that interview that I went back to watch, this is over a year ago, that he had this interview with Shemun on Arise TV, on Channels TV, right? He said that the federal government alone, not state government, not local government, the federal government alone have 11,866 abandoned projects. 11,866 abandoned. Now, and 40% of national debts are from these mega projects, these capital projects. And if you remember, what Buhari did was that we borrowed so much money, up to 13 trillion in 7 years, because we are trying to invest in capital projects. And these are what this economist told him then, as one of the drivers of moving Nigeria forward. Let's invest in infrastructure. Now, Buhari did all this borrowing, managed to finish the second Niger bridge after 10 years. But look at what Jimoh Ibrahim said. Remember, Jimoh Ibrahim is somebody that has the caliber. In fact, he's gone to places and schooled in places and even teaching in places like Cambridge, Oxford, and the rest. So he's well learned. In fact, the most learned. Now, in that particular interview, he kept asking for money for his consultation, but then because of national love or patriotism, he managed to give all those things free. Now, out of all the advices that he gave her free, the one the federal government did was to go and borrow from Exim banks. I remember that I learned the word Exim Bank from that show, and I went to Google it. Now, we've borrowed more money and still borrowing more money. But again, the effect of those monies are not seen. Right. Although Jimoh Ibrahim believes that borrowing is not a problem, the problem is the more we borrow, we are sinking more in debts because we have to service those debts. And at the same time, there is nothing in terms of increasing our revenue. Now, he said some things. He said in Ajaokuta, for example, as a project, one of the 11,000 plus projects the federal government have abandoned, Ajaokuta still have been running for 42 years. 42 years, and $6 billion have already been invested. And he says that even when during Buhari's tenure, he paid about $500 million for this Ajaokuta to get it back from the Indian company that we sold it to, right, who have been taking Nigeria to court, right? Even though he paid to buy it back, he said that money that he used to pay for it could have even built another steel mill from the ground. Because their Ajaokuta steel is so old that they don't do those type of steel again. So it's either you refurbish it or improve it to the new standards, which is why it is getting more difficult. Now, he said something about Shopee, which has cost about $4.6 billion and today does not have any address. So now the layman or the common man on the street will just see that these are just bogus projects for politicians to siphon money. And rightly so, because how else do you want to explain that a national library, which is in one place, Abuja alone, you spent 375 billion naira just to get to the 4th floor? Goodluck Jonathan asked, how much can I use to roof it at that 4th floor? And they brought a cost estimation of 337 billion naira to finish it, and it's supposed to get up to 13th floor. Now they've abandoned that project and it's still lying there in waste. You can't even convert it to something else. You can't even, and then he also said that in terms of security, 1.2 trillion has been spent on Boko Haram in the last 20 years, whereas we could have used approach like political socialization to deal with it, because it's an ideological problem and not a conventional war problem. Like, Nigeria is not a war. It's something that you could use other social solutions for, welfare, creating spores, going into, skill acquisition, alleviating poverty. These are things that other countries invest in. And that's why you will know there are countries that don't have all these issues. There are many countries. People think Nigeria thinks that it's only US and UK are countries that they can learn from. There are many countries in Europe. There are countries that close their prisons. There are countries that don't even need their police. There are countries that don't even have police in the first place. There are countries that, they've never had any issue. to use their military or whatever, because everything is there. The system is running efficiently without issues. Now, he also mentioned something that could have dealt with this issue of herdsmen, destroying farms when we need agriculture the most. One of the biggest issue with farmers is that their farms are being destroyed by animals, by cows, and also a Fulani man will also tell you that their cow is worth more than their body or worth more than themselves, their lives, and other people's lives. So their so-called cows that are they put above human lives can also go and destroy another person's crop. So at the end of the day, he said there is a project called Hadija Hydro Irrigation Project that could have solved all these herdsmen issues, since we are not by the Northerners are not buying into the ranching, and there are very recent, or there is more there are better ways of running, like ranches and husbandry and all those kind of things, that you don't need to be moving cows all the way down to the south for them to feed. You could create all those things, you could buy them, you could grow them. So he was saying that project, like the hydro irrigation that's supposed to, increase the green grass and all of that for these cows to feed on, that all those projects are abandoned. Now, this is it. Now, he says in that interview that any president that does not look into this abandoned project as one of his key areas to focus, that president is joking. And funny enough, as close as this guy is to the presidency, nobody listens to him. This is somebody who has it all in terms of education, in terms of exposure. And he's telling you that I'm supposed to charge, Shehu, I'm supposed to charge for this, but I'm giving it free. I have more than 20 solutions for Nigeria. So why can't we listen to people like P2B, people like Jimoh Ibrahim? That is my problem. And to think that this guy went to even run for governorship in Ondo, and APC couldn't even, allow him to win, and did all the dubiousness they did, and and this is somebody that is a trillionaire. He's a trillionaire. He said he declared his assets up to trillions, So I personally, right, I love intelligent people. I love listening to very wise people. And Jimoh Ibrahim is one of those wise people that Nigeria has produced. So please, can Tinubu listen to this man, not just borrow you money like he has advised you? Can you also look at abandoning projects? You borrow this money from exim banks, but you're supposed to do what? To invest it into these abandoned projects. Convert the National Library to something that can solve. Merge all these institutions, all these ministries that we have. Okay, I was listening to the first guy that came on talk about our electioneering processes, and said that even our by-elections after the 2023 election have been worse than the main election. He's one of the civil societies. So at the end of the day, Nigeria is not even going upward but downward. Yakubu Mahmoud needs to be sacked. Nigeria cannot have a credible election under Yakubu Mahmoud. He's proven to be corrupt. So at the end of the day, you look at South Africa, how they did the election, you look at other countries, and you want Nigeria to achieve that with somebody like Yakubu Mahmoud. No. And apparently, there are some seats that are still vacant. Festus Okoye Atlanta, there's aspiration of his seat. So who else is replacing him? So all these things are purely because you have people that are crooked, people like Professor Yakubu Mahmoud, that are still in INEC. So I don't know what is expected of a dual election, but of course, because it favors the government in power, the incumbent government of the federal government, which is APC, they probably will allow those nests to continue. But unless it goes to the opposition party, that's when they will start shouting, INEC is doing this, INEC is doing this. But now that you have the power to do the right things, let's have a very clear way of electing all these returning officers and all these INEC officials. For starters, this woman that stood and said the truth in Abia State is a very good candidate to head INEC. And I always say women, because I know if Nigeria use women in key positions, it will be very, very difficult for anybody to change them, especially if they are not corrupt. Do you understand? So that woman, I've forgotten her name, the professor that was the returning officer for Abia State, that allowed transparency and allowed the votes to count in Abia State, that gave birth to the best governor as it is today, which is Alex Oti of Abia State. That woman is supposed to be one of the national, if not actually the INEC chairman. I've forgotten her name. So that said, I also listened to. Sorry, I'm making this long. I also listened to, and I didn't know he was very well read as well. I don't know if he's Archbishop or Bishop Kuka. the Archbishop of Kaduna, right? And he made a very fantastic statement in one of the, I think it's called The Platform, that had people like Professor Soludo in attendance and others, where Soludo was saying things like, we cannot afford the minimum wage. And what he said was that if you look at countries that are doing well, you look at their presidents, most of their presidents are, they have long time to sort of turn things around in those countries. And he gave examples like Singapore, Russia, China, and all the rest, which are running companies, or although they might run an election, they still produce the same president for long. Now, this is my response to him, right? My response to him is that fine and good. There are some presidents even in Africa that have been there for long. And sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. There are corrupt presidents that even if they stay there 30 years, nothing happens, nothing changes for good. There are also presidents that they've been there for the long time and they were better for their people like, Gaddafi. But then when Gaddafi died, Libya has not even come out of the mess since Gaddafi died. Because, of course, even though he was a long-serving president, he was beneficial to his people. But aside from that, if you look at places like China, although the president of China is also a communist and stayed there for a while, you understand that you pay the ultimate price in China if you are found to be corrupt. So, whereas we are trying to say, okay, let's allow presidents to run for long term, or to, what if Obasanjo, for example, had his way and had third term, maybe things would have been better. But again, you have to understand that unless you make a strong rule about corruption, we know what Putin is doing for Russia. He could be there very long, but he doesn't tolerate nonsense. Do you understand? And again, you can see that the president is for the people. If the president is doing the right thing, even if you stay there for 4 executive, consistent, or what do you call it? Like 4 street tenors as a president, nobody cares. To be fair, nobody cares. But if things are not going well, people will start revolting, and that's the truth. So even the Singaporean president that he gave, he gave example of, is Singapore not working well? People will gladly come and vote for you. People always vote for Putin to win. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get at is, if the Senate are trying to pass a new law to reduce presidency to 6 years, I agree, reduce it to 6 years. Because at the end of the day, Nigeria is not there yet. If we find a solid leader that manages to do one thing very well, and we want to bring him back again and bring him back again and bring him back again, then the people know they are the ones making that decision. But for you to say mandatorily, let's run one person for 10 years or 20 years, what if that person is corrupt? We are going to be corrupt for that number of years. So the key thing is not really the tenor. The key thing is, how much do we fight corruption? What is the consequences of being corrupt? And how transparent is our electioneering process? Unless we do these things. And again, I want to end with what I said earlier. Those 11,866 projects, which Ajaokuta still is only one of it, right? Second Niger Bridge, I think is the only one that has been completed by Buhari. Do you understand? Ajaokuta is still a failure. The refineries, none of them has pumped even 1 liter of fuel. We are now hoping that since Dangote has given us July, that July will be July and it will not be shifted again. So please, I'm saying this for what it's worth. Let's listen to people who are highly educated in Nigeria. Let's listen to the likes of Jimoh Ibrahim, who is closer to this government than a P2B, probably, who is seen as opposition. But if you can listen to a P2B, listen to a P2B. Let's do the right things with our money. Thank you so much.